I've already walked you through my top 5 dinosaurs that start with the letter A. Props for a Margosaurus being so punk rock. Today we'll walk through dinosaurs that start with the letter B. There are 47 dinosaurs vying for the crown, but only 5 will be crowned. This is A for non-avian dinosaurs, letter B.
All right, starting out here at number 5, we have Bambiraptor. Yes, you heard it right, Bambiraptor. Its name, unsurprisingly, means Bambi thief. Now, this is what it looks like here in the skeleton in the scientific paper Burnham All, which described it. Here's a skull and actually some lovely paleo art within the article itself. We can see that this is a fairly small animal. Here's another distinguishing. It is a dromosaurid, so that means running lizards. More colloquially, these are a type of raptor. This was actually found by a 14-year-old boy on his family's Montana ranch, so discovered in Montana. It had a 90% complete skeleton, which is pretty rare. Most skeletons are much more fragmentary than that. It is quite small. The holotype was a juvenile. Holotype means the skeleton that the species is described off of. Its adult was likely 1.3 meters. It would have been a small predator hunting things like the frog we see here. Its bone structure suggests it is a fast runner and very bird-like, as I've said, and some have described it as the North American version of Archaeopteryx. Now, going back to the name here, while it might be from the Disney Bambi, the little deer, it also might be from bambino, which means baby in Italian. In any case, this diminutive raptor certainly lives up to its name and is voted most likely to give you mixed feelings about Disney. Scuttling along to number 4, we have Bravoceratops. This is a ceratopsian. Its name means wide horned face. We got a picture of him here. You see here there's this horn up here. That's going to be important later. Here's the paper describing. Here's partial skull and comparison to other ceratopsians. And again, you can kind of see this is going to be important here. And surprisingly, you can actually get a replica skull of Bravoceratops if you really want to for about $8,000 from Gaston Designs if you really want to. Anyways, its name means wide horn face. Again, it's a ceratopsian, and this was discovered in Texas, and it just is perfect. That's exactly where you think a ceratopsian with the name of Bravoceratops would be from. You know, horns, freedom, and a Paleolithic way. Just magical. Anyways, this lived in the late Cretaceous, pretty normal large size of a ceratopsian, 8 meters long. And now what's really interesting is its species name, which is Polyphemus. That is the Cyclops in Greek mythology, particularly the Cyclops that Odysseus meets in the Odyssey, and he blinds after the Cyclops goes around eating his men. And this comes from the idea that there might have been a central horn, as I alluded to, in the frill, sort of like the central eye in the Cyclops. But like many things in paleontology, whether or not they had the single central horn on the frill is contested. So, with Bravoceratops, we must conclude that he would be voted most likely to have a wild 4th of July story to tell with way too many fireworks involved. On to number 3, we have Baryonyx. This name means heavy claw, and claw it has. So here's a picture of him from one of my favorite dinosaur books of all time, An Alphabet of Dinosaurs by Peter Dodson and Wayne Barlow. Here is a picture of its skeleton. It's actually one of the most complete spinosaurids, so it's a spinosaurid. Those are the theropods that have more of a crocodilian, narrower snout, often found near aquatic environments. And here is a picture from Chargan Miller's scientific description of some more wonderful paleo art. We again see it near the river, And here is that wonderful heavy claw in question on the front limbs here. It was probably used to catch fish. So this is a fish eater. And interestingly enough, when it was first discovered, it was unclear where the claw went, because a lot of dinosaurs like dromaeosaurids, raptors have claws on their feet, so they weren't sure where it went, but they figured that out eventually. This is a very interesting dinosaur, and given its claw, I'm afraid it will have to be voted most likely to report to the hospital with a nose-picking, quote-unquote, related activity and injury. Creeping in on number 2, we have Brachylophosaurus, which means short-crested lizard, which is a little bit of a letdown given such a magnanimous-sounding name, but is a hadrosaurid. It's rather large, but most of them are. Here is some paleo art, and it actually looks pretty conventional, kind of a boring head. Well, what do you get when you say short-crested? So kind of a boring head. Looks pretty conventional. Why is it number 2? Well, it's because of this fact here. You see, that almost looks like mummification, and in fact, there are several mummified quote-unquote specimens that have been found. Now, they aren't actually true mummies, but they have this sort of natural mold that gives skin impressions and other really interesting things above and beyond the bones of most dinosaurs. So this is really kind of cool stuff here. And much less cool is the pretty conventional head here. So anyways, it was discovered in Alberta, and then later in Montana, and a lot of these more interesting mummified remains are in Montana, so it's known more out of Montana, and it has a lot of fun names of the specific specimens. This one here is actually Leonardo, but there's other ones like Elvis, Roberta, even Peanut and Marco, and in fact, I believe Peanut and Marco is in a small museum in Malta, Montana, which I've passed through, and actually later on, there was a bone bed near Malta, Montana, where over 800 skeletons of this Brachylophosaurus was discovered. So we know a lot about this hadrosaur. And because it was discovered in Alberta and Montana, unsurprisingly, we know enough that we can distinguish 2 species. The first one is B. canadensis, which unsurprisingly is the one from Canada, and then B. goodwini, which is the one discovered in Montana. And so with that, we have Brachylophosaurus, its mummified interestingness, which gives it the dubious degree of voted most likely to start an Egyptology fan club. Before we get to our number 1 pick, let's do some honorable mentions, dinosaurs that were cool, but just not cool enough to make it into the top 5. First, Brachytrachelopan, which besides being hard to pronounce, is an interesting short-necked sauropod. Its name means short-necked pan, and yeah, you think of sauropods as having long necks, but this one bucks the trend. In fact, he might have drawn the short straw, as it were, in the evolutionary race. So cool there. Next, we have Bista Hivenursur. This means destroyer from Behistee. Bistahi is a wilderness area, so you could also call this the destroyer from the wilderness. It's also nicknamed the Bisty Beast. So this is a theropod, a tyrannosauroid. So pretty typical in that manner, other than its really cool name. Moving on, we have Bieposaurus, which means Biepo lizard. So kind of a letdown given the previous his cool name meaning. But this is a Therizinosaur. Those are kind of an interesting group of dinosaurs. And we've gotten pretty good feather impressions out of the fossils of this. But other than that, pretty straightforward. And then finally, we have Bishang Long, which means Bishang dragon. This is, I believe, an ornithopod. And this was essentially the Chinese version of Gallimimus. So with that, we'll move over to what I call venerable mentions. So well-known dinosaurs that start with B that I didn't think were cool enough to make the top 5. And just one here, Brachiosaurus. Its name means arm lizard. It's a very iconic sauropod. You know, think Jurassic Park. If you've seen Jurassic Park, you've seen one of these things. And it's interesting that while when it was discovered, it was a fairly complete skeleton. Later remains of other sauropods around the area revealed that it was actually one of the rarer sauropods in the region. So despite being so well known, it probably wasn't that abundant. We've come to number 1, and that number is Breviceratops. Its name means short horned face, and it is short, sort of horned, and it certainly has a face. This is a ceratopsian found in the Gobi Desert of Mongolia, and it is tiny. You can see here some paleo art, but here's the actual sort of drawing of the skeleton in the rock bed. You can see this is about 5 centimeters here. It's only about 20 centimeters all along. This was a juvenile, so we're not quite sure how big it got. Depends on how big the juvenile, but it was small. Here's another thing of the scientific paper. 1 centimeter here. It's a very small skull. And here it is in comparison. So it's blown up here. This is a different reimagining where it's more bipedal compared to other ceratopsians closely related like Protoceratops, and you see it is tiny. It's little itty bitty, and it was actually originally named as a Protoceratops species. So in any case, this is like small dog territory at best for a tiny little ceratops that you would want to keep as a pet. So with that, I'm going to call it voted most likely to become a pampered purse pet. With that, thank you, and that was our top 5.
Huh. Fascinating. Who would have guessed that exhaustive dinosaur research could be fun? Well, I mean, like, besides me and, like, professional paleontologists. Anyways, read Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park to tide yourself over while you wait for the letter C entry. And remember, B is for brace yourselves for awesome.